Guys, welcome to another episode of Hack Check Podcast. We're here at PFA with the owner, Mike Mouneimne. You just told me.
Mouneimne, it's fine.
Mouneimne, I'm sorry, Mike. Thanks for having us, Mike. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming.
My wife and I had a little bit of a chance to watch you guys train a little bit before we started. Have you got guys that are fighting soon, or?
So we've got Mishka Labshas fighting in October, and we've got Tumero and possibly Jalson fighting in November. Looking for a fight for my wife, hopefully in December. So we got a couple of MMA guys in action, and then we got a team of boxers fighting professionally in November as well on the 19th. It's one of our charity events that we're putting together with some pro boxing. And then we've got a couple of amateurs in Muay Thai and MMA coming up as well. So it's quite a busy year.
And I'm sure you guys got a big team for AJP as well.
I think the guys are getting keen to compete, especially now with this weekend's ADCC. I think the competition is revving in the guys, so they're keen to get going. So we've got a nice little culture brewing with the competition team as well.
So when did you start this gym? I want to go way back. Actually, before we go to when you started the gym, what's your background in combat sports and martial arts?
So my dad wanted us to start with karate back in the day, watching Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi and Daniel-san. So my brother was super keen. He started when he was like 4. I started a little bit later, 7. We did karate, kickboxing concurrently, and then we started doing some Muay Thai, and then we met a French guy who came down doing submission wrestling, and he kind of got us onto the MMA path.
What age were you at that time?
When we started grappling, we were about 22, 23 years old. And then my brother was about 25, and then we grappled with him every single day. He was in Cape Town for about a year and a half, 2 years. He was just like a European submission wrestling champ. He had some sambo under his belt as well, so like footlocks and all that stuff as well, which was pretty cool. And he blew us away. We met him and we're like, what's this guy going to teach us? A small little French guy, soft spoken, and took us down in the first training session, choked us unconscious twice, both myself and my brother, and was like, okay, now that we got rid of your ego, you can start learning how to grapple. Coming from the background of strikers, we thought we were untouchable. Turns out we were very touchable.
When I spoke to Rico about when he started as well, he said, Rico's about 120, he's a very big dude, and he started grappling the guys about 50, 60 kilograms. And he had exactly the same thought in his mind. He said, look at the size difference, what's this guy going to do to me? And he very quickly learned, these guys know stuff. And I'm sure back then, there were probably very few people that were doing any type of grappling, submission grappling, that kind of thing.
There was, I think, a handful of guys in Joburg, Durban, and Cape Town that started. I think Rico started with Ludwig back in the day. So there were a handful of guys. There wasn't a lot happening at the time. So, anyone who knew how to grapple back then. Rico was lucky. He came from a bit of a wrestling background as well. So grappling kind of came naturally to him, where we didn't have that wrestling background until we met Vian Lesh. And he introduced us to wrestling the very hard way.
The best way, but it's tough.
It's very tough, but it was fun. So, so the gym is 23 years old now. We're in our 23rd year. So we've been a fully fledged MMA gym for 23 years. Started as a gym that only wanted to have fighters. We didn't want to have a commercial gym. We just wanted a team of fighters. And then we were getting like VHS tapes of Pride and UFC and watching that, and that's all we wanted to do. But no aspirations to have a commercial gym, which we have now. It's completely different.
I've been fortunate enough to come to 2 open mats here previously, and it's a very nice vibe in the gym. There's a lot of people. I see your guys' Instagram as well. It's a very lively gym, very committed bunch of people, committed coaching team as well.
Thank you.
It's definitely one of the larger gyms probably in the whole of Cape Town, if not South Africa.
Look, we've been around for a while, so we know what works and what doesn't work. I think a lot of gyms are starting out. They haven't quite found their balance yet, and it's tricky. I'm 45 years old and I've been coaching combat sports besides karate, kickboxing, and MMA, rugby and stuff. So I've been dealing with people and personalities for a long time. So you kind of get to know how to deal with everybody. And so we kind of hit the sweet spot, especially with my wife coming on board as a full-time partner about 5-6 years ago. It really added a different dynamic to the gym. So we're a very female-friendly space as well. We got a lot of ladies training in the gym, a lot of ladies on jits mat. Probably one of the bigger female fight teams as well. We got a lot of competitive fighters. And this year we're going to be turning a whole bunch of the ladies that came for just a simple self-defense, a ground-based self-defense program. We've all just got the jiu-jitsu bug, and now they're all going to start competing, which is pretty cool.
No, that's very, very cool. So just going back to when you started, you know, how big was the group of guys? I know you said, you know, you were introduced to Vian Lesh back in the day, and I'm sure obviously boxing, we've got a long history of boxing in South Africa, to an extent kickboxing as well, but how big was the community back then, and how hard was it to get sort of, say, training partners, or, you know, to learn other than from your teachers or your coaches?
Yeah, look, then we had quite a big team actually. We didn't have a big gym. Well, we had a big gym space. We had about 400 or 500 squares, but it was raw. It was literally blood, sweat, and fear. We met Vian because Vian needed a camp to train in. I can't remember where he was training before, but he wanted a change of camps, and him and my brother hit it off really well. My brother Omar, we started the gym together, and yeah, once he came into the mix, yeah, we were teaching him how to strike. We were showing him some grappling, some basic grappling stuff. I mean, we weren't great back then. When we opened the gym, we were blue belts. Okay. So
But back then, blue belt, I mean, is different to what it is now. Because back then, if you saw a purple belt or a brown belt, it was like, what?
Yeah, no, listen, if you saw a Brazilian guy, it was like, wow, you hit the lottery. Yeah. But yeah, he and my brother hit it off, and we started training him for fights, and it was pretty cool. But he's only got one way of training, so it was very hard to get sparring partners for him. So we often used to bring his bouncing colleagues in on a Friday or a Monday, and just let him tear loose on them. But it was a lot of fun in the beginning. But when the gym grew and the guys' skills got better, then it was a lot better to give him some training partners. And we had a lot of our French connection, Cyril Diabate, Loic, the couple of the guys who pioneered MMA in France were coming down. So we had a really high level coaches coming down, and they managed to spend some time with Vian. He got some good sparring with a couple of their fighters as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, because I was going to say, his striking is actually, I mean, I met Vian, I think in about 2011, 12, around there, because he was bouncing in Stellenbosch.
Yeah.
And he was training a couple of guys there. So, I mean, I got to talking with him and things like that, and I think I saw a couple of his fight videos, and his striking was really good at that time.
He's an athlete, you know, he was always talented, physical specimen, and so hardworking. Just plagued by injury, which is a bit unfortunate.
Tough as well. I mean,
tough as nails.
Did you guys coach him for the Forrest Griffin fight? Or?
No. I think it was just after that fight, he had lost the Forrest Griffin fight, and then he came to us.
Okay, but that was, when was that, about early 2000s, I think. It was just before Forrest Griffin came
in the carousel.
Yeah, I think he tore his infraspinatus or something like that in his shoulder, but he still finished the fight.
He threw Forrest around like a rag doll, and I think I can't remember how it finished. It either went to points or he got subbed. It was one of the two, but he threw him around like a rag doll first for like the duration of the fight. And Vian was an incredible wrestler. Yeah, one of the best.
I think he was an amateur, went to World Champs, I think, if I remember correctly. I might be mistaken, but
I think it could have been Commonwealth Games.
Okay, Commonwealth Games was it? Okay.
But he was really good.
And so then back then, you know, obviously now grading and things like that is main, you know, all the gyms have grading and lineage and things like that. How did you know, get to, you said you were graded to a blue belt at that time. Who was who graded you at the time, and how did you get in touch with the Brazilian side back then? Because I mean, like now, if you want to go train, let's say in LA, you just hit someone up on Instagram and you say, listen, I'm keen to go. And, you know, I'm sure it was quite hard back then or was it?
Yeah, no, it was very difficult. So we met a couple of international guys, and we were putting on shows. So we were putting on a lot of fight events. For one of our fight events, we brought down Josh Thompson, brought Trevor Prangley back from the States. He actually fought Rico in one of our events. So we got introduced to like gi grappling through Josh Thompson. And then when they left and went back to the States, Roberto Attila, I think was around, and he was going to different gyms, introducing himself, trying to build his brand of jits as well. We met him and we said, listen, we'd love you to come evaluate us. So he took myself and my brother in our gym for 3 or 4 hours, evaluated us, gave us blue belts, and then moved on. And then we never really stayed in touch with him. We just kind of did our own thing. We were pretty much no-gi guys. So we kept bringing down the Frenchies. And just one thing led to another. And my brother was super talented as a grappler, super obsessed. So wherever he could, he would travel, or he would bring somebody down from France. Just spent a lot of time with him. He was like full-time in it. And then, just one thing led to another. We just grew and evolved. We traveled a bit, we trained a little bit in Australia. My brother went to Europe, trained a little bit there. So just, like you do in the beginning.
It's a natural process to get.
Yeah, but you basically haul yourself around for whoever can teach you jits at that stage, because it wasn't a lot.
Yeah, sure, I can imagine back then. It's a fortunate, position that people are in now, because there's a lot of gyms to choose from. There's great lineage, in South Africa, which I don't know, back then being in its infancy stages, I'm sure, as I said, it was probably a little bit harder to find people to train with and things like that. But so, did you ever fight or compete in anything like boxing or MMA or jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, actually, so I've been fighting since I was 16 properly. I had my first professional kickboxing fight when I was 16. I was a big kid, so I basically didn't grow. I've been this size since I was like 13.
Really?
Yeah, I was like.
So who did you fight? Did you fight an adult or?
Yeah, I was fighting adults from 14.
Really?
Yeah, so I was just too big for the kids my age, so they put me into adult classes, put me into adult fights, full contact from 14. It was pretty cool.
Could you get opponents? Because Don Madge told a similar story when he started Muay Thai, and he said that adults didn't want to fight him because if they lose, they get knocked out by a kid. If they win, they beat a kid.
100%. Yeah, I think back then it wasn't so bad for me. I mean, geez, I don't know how much older I am than Don. So when we started, it wasn't Muay Thai. We started competing in full contact kickboxing. So you had the pants, the booties, the gloves.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It was like the Rick the Jet Rufus was the big deal. So it was fancy kickboxing, and it was full contact. But it was a lot of fun. And people didn't really ask my age. My sensei at the time just put us into the older categories because I was big. And I remember the one day I was fighting this guy. His wife and his 2 kids were on the side of the mat, and I was giving him a hiding, and his wife was screaming, "Get my husband out of the ring with this animal! What's he doing? He shouldn't be in the ring with him." And my mom turned around and said, "Shut up! He's 14."
So crazy! Wow. And so did you just do kickboxing or?
Back then we did kickboxing and karate, but our sensei at the time, Sensei George, great human being, very forward-thinking. He didn't like to just stick to karate. He didn't like to stick to kickboxing. So he loved Muay Thai as well. So he was teaching us like Muay Thai techniques as well. And then we kind of like, our gym at the stage, we were like the cowboys of the karate, because, we didn't stick to the traditional karate. We moved around a little bit. And he kind of introduced us to Muay Thai, and then kickboxer came out, and kicking every tree you can find. Yeah. It was a very strange time.
And then as you were going along, I see the Extreme Couture t-shirt there on the wall. Did they come here, or did you go to them to go train? Or how did that?
So no, that actually Extreme Couture top was a gift from Gina Mazzani. She came to the gym a couple of times with her brother Dave when he was fighting in EFC. We've always welcomed them, so she brought us just a souvenir. We just framed it for that. But we had a lot of guys traveling around at that stage, mainly wrestlers. When we popped in, they were like, "Yes, please come to the gym, teach us how to do something." So yeah, we didn't travel to the States to learn much. We did most of our learning down here.
Okay. And so now, from when you started up until now, obviously there's been a big progression in all types of combat sports in South Africa. Where do you see our level at the moment as South Africans? The people that are competing, Luke Griffith competed on the international stage. I think there was I forget her name, she also competed at ADCC now. Peyton, yes, there we go. And then obviously now with Drikas going to UFC and Cameron Simon, where do you think our level is at the moment of our athletes?
Look, I think in terms of talent, we've got really good athletes here, and they're very talented. The problem is our coaches. So very few coaches are forward thinking. Very few coaches actually know what they're doing. So you'll find there's a lot of gyms in and around South Africa, Cape Town especially, where there's guys putting people into fights where they really shouldn't have. They don't have any business putting guys into fights. And you don't have to be a great fighter to be a great coach, but you have to be able to demonstrate stuff properly. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to keep guys safe. So I think, we're struggling on that front. There are very few coaches out there that really give a shit. And a lot of them just want to say, hey, I coach fighters, and without having, with more of a self-ego at play rather than actually wanting to develop fighters. So I think the guys who've had luck we're getting not luck, so you make your own luck, but guys like Don, guys like Trickers, guys like Cameron, these guys fighting overseas and doing well, they work their asses off, and they got good coaches. I mean, Don was training under us for about 6 or 7 years. I mean, the guy doesn't stop. You know what I mean? When he moved to Joburg, I'm pretty sure he was the hardest working person in the room. Same thing with Dricker, same thing with Cameron. And then you look at the coaches that they're working with. These guys are open-minded. They got the athlete's best interest at heart. It's not about, it's my ego. How do I look on TV? How do I look on camera? How do I look in my... Yeah, it's more about supporting your athletes and getting them to the right place. So I don't think we have enough of that, but it's growing. I think with Cameron doing well now and on his 5th professional fight, earning a UFC contract, I think it's really motivated even my youngsters in the gym to go, Coach, I can do the same thing. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Paving the way for them.
If I can do it, they can do it. If the guys are doing well internationally, it's great for everybody. You know what I mean? So I think in a couple of years, we'll have a whole bunch more guys that are competitive internationally. Getting to the UFC is becoming a lot easier now. I think EFC's paved the way a lot for a lot of the athletes to get there. And I think with the performances, the guys have been putting out lately, I think it's really good. Having 2 South African athletes compete like this weekend. I mean, okay, Luke was in the main event. I mean, it's incredible. He's 21 years old. No, it's next level. And
it was a close match as well.
Against a monster. Yeah. It wasn't a green person who was 21 years old, who's just started.
First ADCC.
Yeah. He's a veteran. So, I mean, I think everyone is proud of him. And it's great that he's there because now it puts South Africa on the map.
No, most definitely. And like you say, coaches caring about their fighters. I mean, that's one thing I see on your guys' Instagram all the time. All your fighters and all the people that come and refer to you and Jess's mom and dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's there was also like my wife was saying, just from outside the whole MMA or jiu-jitsu, world, like that is something special to her as well, and I think it is really cool because, people come here, like you say, not just to learn to fight, not just to compete, but also it is a family. I mean, it's a community.
100%.
I mean, guys go for coffee after jiu-jitsu, talk a little bit of shit or whatever it is. If you've got problems, you can come discuss it, I'm sure. It's a nice community. It's a nice feeling for people, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, look, we get that a lot. I mean, we got a hashtag PFA family. It's something that's not just for Instagram. It's how we treat everybody. So I really like to think that we are a family gym, family orientated. I mean, I got my kids running around here. Guys bring their kids to the gym as well. Yeah. I don't tolerate egos in my gym. Back in the day, as a coach coming up, you kind of like tolerated quite a bit. But when you settled in what you want to achieve as a coach, what you want for your fighters, what you want for your environment, I don't like budge on those standards now. So I won't chop and change for anybody.
Yeah, it's unnecessary negativity as well, I'm sure.
100%. If you don't fit in, you must fuck off. And it's not like, I'm telling the guys, guys who don't belong here, guys who come with a bad attitude or big ego, whatever the case is, they get exposed quickly. And it's a beauty about MMA and jiu-jitsu. I had a conversation with the guys on the mat now. I'm on the mat. I'm fair game like everybody else is. Like you go to a karate studio where the sensei is there with his stripes and his black belt. You don't want to look at him because, if you look at him, you might turn to stone because he's got superpowers. But as a jits professor, as a person that's teaching jits in a gym, whether you a blue belt, a purple belt, brown belt, black belt, once you're on the mat rolling, you're fair game. And it's one of the things that keeps really good jiu-jitsu coaches honest because you can't slack. No. You can't rest in your black belt. No, I can't roll with you. You're not on my level. That doesn't exist anymore.
You don't see that. I haven't seen that. I've been fortunate enough to go to a few gyms as well to go see. And I mean, that's the good thing, like you say, it's Jiu-jitsu is one of the things that will humble you the quickest, you know.
Look, I said to my guys tonight, if you're at a jiu-jitsu gym where you can't attack your coach like you want to sub him, and he doesn't allow it, you're in the wrong gym. You know what I mean? Obviously, if you roll, you can roll hard, but you got to roll with respect. So not headbutting, not sticking, elbowing and going nuts, but you can roll hard. You can have a good hard jits roll, you know what I mean, and still be respectful. And you can still attack your coach and try sub him. As a coach, you know, you hell of a proud when your student lands a sweep or whatever the case is, like, geez, okay, well done. I'm actually doing a good job. I don't want to be the best person in the gym my whole life. You know what I mean? You want your fighters and your competitors to overtake you because they're the ones that are going to set your name up high, you know?
So and what you're teaching is then working.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
And then I'm sure you feel super proud. Do people still, I mean, like you said, you know, people come in with egos, they do luckily get humbled very quickly, but do you still see some people come in now and sort of have a big ego where you think, this person's not for us? Or has it now, with the evolution of jiu-jitsu, of MMA becoming more mainstream, you're not seeing it as much anymore?
Look, when we started originally, people heard there was an MMA gym in the area. We had kung fu guys mainly knocking on our door going, that's not a real martial art, or we challenge you. And we had guys literally bringing 5 or 6 guys to the gym, and we're going to have a sparring session, but it's a full contact. I was like, for real? like, you come into my door, you're knocking out, you talk about being a martial artist, but you got no respect. Bring your guys, I'll bring my guys, we'll be here. You set the rules, we'll stick within your rule set. I'll do anything goes because our styles are deadly. It's like, no problem. We used to fuck guys up properly back in the day. And guys who came there because they were, I don't know, jealous, insecure. You know, if you're secure in your martial art, you know, every martial art's got a following. You know, I'm not going to shit on any other martial art, but the traditional martial arts, as beautiful as they may be, they're not as effective as MMA. You know what I mean? They're definitely not even as effective jits on its own. It's like a high-level jits guy. You know, he's going to be smashing kung fu guys, he's going to be smashing karate guys, he's going to be smashing kickboxers. You know, the only guy that will get away with it is a well-rounded MMA guy. Yeah. And then the jiu-jitsu guys got problems.
Or maybe a wrestler, but then he's got submissions and might have a little bit more toughness. I think UFC 1 definitely showed us that. I mean, that was like the best example of
100%.
But everybody's so well-rounded now. I mean, it's like when you watch, or when you go to any gym, that's the nice thing again about the evolution of MMA, is that people don't stick to that one focus, because each martial art has got its place. I mean, if you go up against someone that knows nothing, you know, any martial art will help
100%.
But from a competitive standpoint, yeah, that's always kind of in the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, Muay Thai, boxing, that kind of thing, kickboxing.
I got a running joke in my gym. I tell the guys, the boxers, you can only box, you can't fight. You know what I mean? There's a big difference. And they go, oh, coach, we can fight. We go, no, you can't, because if I kick you in the head or I take you down and smash you, where's boxing going to save you? And it's like, you can box. You're a great boxer. It's a great sport, but you can't fight.
Oh, that's what Conor McGregor said to Floyd Mayweather. Don't call it a fight, call it a boxing match.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and same thing with the jits guys. I'm fighting this weekend. No, but you're competing this weekend. There's a big difference. You know, unless someone's coming to smash your face in, you're not in a fight. You know, and there's a limited rule set in an MMA fight. You know, there's a lot of rules in boxing. So it's a very bit, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing boxing. I love boxing, and it's a tough sport, but it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. But, you know, you see guys now. I mean, if you look at how everyone started, all the original MMA gyms in South Africa, all started with a kickboxing or boxing or karate background. There weren't anybody that started as a fully fledged MMA gym. A lot of guys had no striking backgrounds and then found jits and then started building a jiu-jitsu academy and slowly grew it. But nowadays, you got kids, I mean, they've got access to all the best coaches online. You can go onto YouTube and you can find anything you want. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you have access to the best coaches in the world every single day. If you know how to use it, then great. A lot of guys don't know how to use it, so they fall short and they think they can learn online, but you can't. You have to have some form of level before you can actually start getting online tutorials. But these days, you're not coming from a Muay Thai background, learning jiu-jitsu, sharpening your boxing skills. Every day you're doing something that's part of MMA. And coaches, good coaches, have adapted their boxing and their striking, their kickboxing and their wrestling and their jits to a good MMA game. So you're not finding traditional jiu-jitsu guys going into MMA match now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Into an MMA fight. you got guys who are well-rounded doing things that are specific to MMA.
Yeah, if you look at the guys in the UFC now, it used to be like, oh, that guy's a good wrestler, that guy's got striking. If he can keep it standing, he might win. And to an extent, they still have that because, there's still levels within two world-class guys fighting each other. Let's say two world-class wrestlers, one's wrestling might just be a little bit better than the other one. So if they do get into a wrestling part of a fight, one has the upper hand. But now you can't really say like, okay, well, I mean, look at Kamaru Usman, was a wrestler, but his striking is world class.
100%.
So everybody's so well rounded now. So for anybody going into fighting, like, not that I want to give advice, but just as a fan, I mean, and having watched the evolution of mixed martial arts, it's like you cannot have weaknesses anywhere. And I know when you train, you don't want to have weaknesses anywhere, but everybody's so well rounded now that it's like you're a mixed martial artist, and people are starting mixed martial arts as their sport now. Like Cameron started at 10 years old. Learning MMA. Rory McDonald was the same. So 100%. I think it's just going to keep evolving and keep evolving when people choose that over, say, rugby, or choose that over like the traditional sports, especially here, because here we've got still people going to those traditional sports, and it's not the same as in the US where people do MMA as their primary sport. We still got diamond in the rough here, I think, and it's like you say, a couple more years, I think.
100%. Look, I think most gyms who are MMA gyms like us, I don't run a lot of MMA classes. So I have my kickboxing classes, I have my Muay Thai classes, I got my boxing classes, I got my jits classes, the wrestling classes. Everything that we teach is all directed and styled to suit MMA. So we're not teaching you like boxing where it's going to get you in trouble from a MMA perspective. So we're not teaching Muay Thai where it's traditional Muay Thai, which makes you vulnerable in an MMA sense. So we're teaching stuff that's MMA specific, but we're separating the skills because not everybody actually wants to do MMA. Yeah. They like to say they do it, they like to say they want to do it, but until you know what it really entails, right, guys don't want anything to do with it. So the MMA classes we keep for the fighters, the guys who want to be competitive, we keep it nice and small. We run 3 or 4 for the fighters a week, and then the rest of the guys jump into the different skill sets.
What do you look for in a fighter? I mean, if somebody comes in and says to you, look, Mike, I want to fight MMA, what do you look for? I mean, at the very beginning, obviously it's very hard to tell sometimes unless the person has skills, but is it heart? Is it just work ethic? What are you looking for?
Coachability. So I've actually just had an incident now with a guy who's no longer part of the gym. It's uncoachable. Nice guy. Good guy. Not coachable. Doesn't listen. You know what I mean? So I want guys who can listen. I want guys who will take orders. A good soldier isn't a soldier that asks questions. You know what I mean? You come to me for training, you got to trust that I know what I'm doing. If you don't trust me, I'm not the coach for you. You got to put yourself in my hands, and you got to let me mold you into the fighter that I know you can be. And you can only do that if you're coachable. A lot of guys, even tonight, I mean, I don't know if you heard my rant, but,
a little bit,
but guys are like not listening to the strategy and the plan and the philosophy of my gym, and you want to do stupid things, like you can't. You know what I mean? You don't do it. It doesn't sit into the plan. And if you're not listening, it's the 3rd or the 4th time I'm telling you, I end up coming down hard on you. And if you can't listen on the mat, and you're not coachable in the gym, there's no way you're going to be coachable in the cage. You're not going to take direction, and whatever you put out in the gym, you're going to put out in the cage.
So amplified, probably.
100%. If you train like a pansy and you don't pull the trigger or you don't push hard, and again, you don't have to be stupid, but you've got to have a level of intensity. These guys don't want to train with intensity because they don't want to get tired. They don't like the feeling of fatigue. So if you want to be a coward in training and not push yourself, you're definitely going to be a coward in the cage. If you want to knock somebody out, you've got to strike and hit pads with a level of intensity that builds your punching power. You can't all of a sudden want to throw a hard punch and decide I'm going to be a knockout artist in the
first time in the cage.
You don't wake up on the day and go, today I'm going to be a champion. You know what I mean? You wake up as a kid and go, I want to be an MMA champ. Kuni is our wrestling coach, tells the best stories. But he was like, he told us the one day, and a couple of guys have heard the story. But he said, he goes, you don't sit there at your birthday eating your fucking Pernutro one day and go, today I'm going to be a champ. You know what I mean? Yeah. You've said that, you know what I mean? As a kid, you've decided, I want to be a champ. I'm going to put the work in to be a champ. And I think, it's like when you take that mindset and you apply it into training, you'll see who will hang around. So we push guys. So the sessions are designed to break you. And if you break and you quit, then you're not designed to be a fighter. But if you show heart, you show that you're coachable, those are the guys that I want to train. I don't care about talented people because you can give people skills over time. You really can. My wife's a perfect example. My wife never did any combat sports or contact sports growing up. She did some dancing, she did some running. For most of the time, she didn't do anything. And she played around with jiu-jitsu, but like semi-seriously, when we got married, it wasn't anything hectic. But for the last 3.5 years, nearly 4 years, she's decided, like, I want to take this seriously. You know what I mean? So she's not a natural striker, but she works on her striking every single day. She's not a natural wrestler, but she works on her wrestling every single week. You know what I mean? So, and as a result, she's become tough as nails because she knows she's not the most talented fighter in the world. She has to work harder than anybody else. As a female and as somebody who doesn't have a background in fighting or in martial arts, you got to play catch up. And it's that type of personality, that type of work ethic that is easy to take to a fight because they're training like they don't belong. You know what I mean? Yeah. To prove a point the whole time. And when you got that intensity and that level of dedication to your training, the results will show. And she's had 2 good fights against 2 really
amazing fights. Yeah.
And the ladies that she's fought are long-time martial artists. Ladies have been undefeated in certain areas of their martial arts career. The lady, Haiti, she just fought now, she's never lost any competition. Kickboxing, Sanshao, you name it, Muay Thai, grappling competitions. She never lost it. She never lost. It's the first time she took a loss. Crystal, when she fought Crystal, same thing. Crystal, very experienced striker. She fought overseas in the States against high-level competition in Muay Thai and MMA. Jess made it look pretty easy. Not because she's the most talented fighter in the room, but she's the hardest working person in the room. And that's all you need.
Yeah, that's important, actually. That's an important point because, like you say, you can impart skills onto people. And even, I'm sure, in a fight, when someone's maybe in a tough situation, because they're coachable, because they've pushed themselves in training, in that scenario, even if it's new to them, you can coach them out of that scenario, even in a fight, 100% in MMA.
Look, you can't always win the fight from the corner. Can't always. It's not possible. But I make sure that the guys are able to listen to me on the mat before I put them into the cage. And if you don't listen to me on the mat, I know you're not going to listen to me in the cage. So when shit gets real and you need me to elevate you and you can't listen to me, you're not going to get that second wind, to be able to push through and steal the fight from a loss. You know what I mean? You're going to end up losing. And I made that mistake with this particular fighter that's just left my gym. He's no longer with me. Because he's a nice guy, I broke my own rules because I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, knowing that I didn't want to take him up for a fight, knowing that he wasn't prepared, but hoping that he'll be able to put it off anyway because he's a good human being. And you can't do that. And as a result, the fight was terrible. As a result, I sat there at the side of the cage.
Was it terrible because he took a lot of damage, or was he just not doing what you were saying? Or?
No, he didn't take any damage. There wasn't a fight to speak of. So you train for a fight, and I always tell my fighters the same thing. You're training for a fight, you've got a fight, you have to take that opportunity to fight. You can't go into a fight and shadow box for 3 rounds and expect the win to fall from the sky. It's not gonna. You as a fighter, you need a win to make money, and you need to perform well to win fans. Without W's on your record, you're not going to increase your pay, and without exciting fights, you're not going to increase your fan base. And if you're not popular, you're not going to make money even if you're winning. So I'm a firm believer in performance. I don't care if you lose. I don't care about losses, as long as you perform. Because 2 fighters can have an absolute barn burner, smash each other for 3 or 5 rounds, and somebody's got to lose. But you can be proud of that loss. But you can win a fight and fight like an absolute schmuck. And no one cares. And I'm not proud of the performance because you didn't perform to your ability. You didn't go out and put on a show. It's not all about the crowd, but MMA is a type of. Conor McGregor made the most money in MMA. Why? Because most entertaining. He put on spectacular fights. he didn't showboat up until when he was knocking guys left, right, and center. And he won millions of dollars. He won belts. You know what I mean? He kind of earned the right to be a prick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Guys are not doing that. They're not letting their performances speak for themselves. They want to post cool pictures of themselves in the cage on Instagram, with a fancy quote about being a warrior, being willing to die in the cage. But your performance didn't show what your picture's reflecting. You know what I mean?
Well, look at Nate Diaz. I mean, it's like, I've got respect for all the people fighting, so I'm not trying to shit on anybody or whatever, but look at Nate Diaz's record is I think what's he got, 15 losses? Well, I think it's 13 losses, maybe more, something like that. But George Masvidal, same thing. But people love to watch them because they're entertaining and then they're real. And Nate Diaz is not a performance when he goes into the cage. He's like a trained fighter. He's like a fighter. That guy would fight in the street probably for free. Or he does fight for free, and that's why he was one of the After the McGregor fight, he started getting his pay, but those guys are still going to be some of the highest paid. Chael Sonnen was the most entertaining. He also had a bad record back in the day. He had a good run, and he almost beat Anderson Silva, but that was the entertainment factor, and 100%. That guy put the pressure on you. Some people, I think, maybe, and this is in the converse side of it now, is people were fan favorites of Adesanya, for example. Amazing style, amazing fights, and a lot of people feel now that he's become the champion, he's got a little bit cautious. And it's unfortunate, from a martial arts point of view, maybe, you can understand some people taking a step back. But that initial entertainment factor that was there, a lot of people feel is now gone because he's sort of stepped back, and it's switched almost overnight
100%.
Because of the style changes.
I think. So you're looking at guys like Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal. They're very popular fighters. They'll never hold a world title. They're just not those fighters. They're not that caliber. There's the real deal, guys who, they're tough and they can beat many people, but they're not going to beat the champ. It's just one of those things. But they're cool to watch because they make fights entertaining. A guy like Adesanya, I think he had the world at his fingertips. And I think people are starting to get frustrated because you pay a lot of money to watch a UFC fight. If you go sit in the crowd, you want to sit cage side to watch an Adesanya fight, you want to see fireworks. You don't want to see him come breakdancing out to the walk, which is cool, but you breakdance, let your performance, on the way to the cage, match the performance that you put on in the cage. But now he's being super careful, fighting not to lose, not fighting to win necessarily, waiting for the other guy to come in and take the belt from him. And that type of championship mentality doesn't win fans. Anderson Silva had one of the biggest fan bases ever because he went out and destroyed guys every single, except with Damian Maia. That was terrible. Yeah. But, there was such backlash on that fight. You know what I mean?
I think he fought Forrest Griffin the next fight, and that's why he was so. Was it Forrest Griffin next week?
I can't remember.
It was like something out the Matrix because he wanted to put an exclamation point because people had given so much backlash.
Yeah, and he was probably the most the highest paid athlete at that time. He was endorsed by Burger King, Nike. He got massive deals. It wasn't like the division caught up to him. You know what I mean? He got complacent. He got lazy. He caused his own losses. Yeah, he got old. But, he was an incredible champion. You know what I mean? He went on an amazing run and he finished everybody. Exactly. So when you start fighting boring fights, and you don't have to knock out everybody, but at least be an exciting fight. And if you've proven that you've only got one war in you, and that was the fight with Calvin Gastelum where they had an absolute war, one of the best fights you've ever seen. You know what I mean? And then you never get that performance again. And you're calling out these warriors like Yoel Romero, and then you want to outpoint him like you're in a kickboxing match. It's not cool. Especially, again, when people are paying so much on pay-per-view, when you're paying so much to be there, and he's earning millions of dollars. You got to give a championship performance. You can't just go out there and play it safe every single time.
It can be detrimental, because look at Kamaru Usman. He played it safe. And Leon Edwards kept getting more confident, kept being more confident, kept advancing, and it was to his detriment in the end.
100%. And I'd love to see what Leon does with the belt now. You know what I mean? He's a super talented fighter, and he's done what nobody's been able to do and knock out Usman. Let's see what he does with it. I hope he becomes an exciting champ. You know, guys like Volkanovski, guys like Max Holloway, you know, you die to watch them fight. You know what I mean? They put on crazy technical fights. You know what I mean? But they leave it all out in the cage. And when you get guys saying, "Oh, I'm willing to die in the cage," most people aren't. But those guys fight like they are willing to die in the cage. You look at Volkanovski's performance with Ortega. I mean, he was so close to being put to sleep, but he won't. He won't tap. He'll keep fighting. You know what I mean? And he's got heart and balls and talent and work ethic. You know what I mean? It's incredible. And those are the type of champions that you want to see making the big money. You know what I mean? Conor McGregor, he's not my favorite fighter. I'm not.
It wasn't until the Khabib fight and things sort of went off the rails. Not fighting wise, yes, but just the way his psyche changed. I think he was my favorite back then. But yeah,
He was cool. Habib, like quiet guys like that are always my favorite.
okay. Yeah.
And if you look what he's managed to achieve, you know, he's got a massive following. He's just as popular as Conor. He might not be as rich as Conor, but he doesn't have the alcohol business. But he's worth $50-60 million, maybe more. You know what I mean? Everyone knows him. He's just as famous as Conor, and he didn't have to do any of those antics. He let his performances speak for itself.
Is he your favorite fighter, or who's your favorite fighter?
I've got a few favorites, but Habib, I love him. He's right up there. It started with my favorite, first favorite fighter was always Wanderlei Silva, the axe murderer.
The Pride version.
The Pride version. That was incredible. Myself and my brother had a nice rivalry. He used to love Sakuraba, so it was pretty cool. My nephew's name's Hickson, so my brother's a big Hickson Gracie fan. So it was seeing the performances. You know, having a guy that will fight anyone and
Mirko Krokop.
Yes,
That should have never happened. Talk about fights that should have never happened. That should have never happened.
It was heartbreaking to see the fight. So when you watch a guy that you invested in, even though it's just emotionally, you know what I mean. When they fight, your heart races, you get nervous. Like seeing Wanderlei fight does that. Watching Habib fight does that. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
That wasn't the start of the down. Like, there was a bit of a downward spiral for Wanderlei because I used to download the Pride fights after that happened. I can't remember where we used to download it from because I had a friend who was very into UFC and Pride back then, and he kept telling me like the axe murderer. I'm like, the axe murderer. What the?
Now listen, we've been watching Wanderlei since he fought in Meca Valetudo in Brazil, with no gloves, headbutts allowed. You know what I mean? Hitting the groin. You know what I mean? Like everything. I mean, that's some crazy shit. He's always that stare down, the intensity. I always loved it. But UFC is a different kettle of fish. You know, in Pride, you could go 0-10 and get knocked out 10 times, but as long as you went out on your shield, you know what I mean? They didn't give a shit. In UFC, you gotta be careful. You know, if you lose too much, you're out. In Pride, you can be 10-0, and if you're boring, they're gonna cut you. So it was way more exciting back then. I think
they used to give yellow cards as well if you were boring, you ran away.
The best.
Yeah, it's the best. They should do that in UFC. I don't know why they don't do that.
Look, I think the commissioners regulate too much. Okay. Japan, I think, it's a little bit easier to get away with things, and they love action. You know what I mean? And they also like the freak shows, so that's why they had the open weight categories.
Man, Choi and Bob Sapp and those guys.
Unreal.
Yeah.
But I mean, back then they were putting 100,000 people into a live Olympic stadium. You know what I mean? Pride Dynamite was one of the biggest shows where Bob Sapp fought Minotauro. You know, it's like
spiked him on his head.
Yeah, it was incredible. What a fight! But I mean, like those are the fights that we grew up watching. And when we put on our first MMA shows, we did Pride rules. So no elbows, but stomps, penalty kicks, knees to the head. You know what I mean?
That's worse to me than an elbow actually as a soccer kick. I don't know, am I wrong? But I mean, to me, surely it's worse.
It's way worse. But the thing is, the reason why Pride didn't have elbows back in the day is because the cuts ruin fights. So elbows were easy to cut. Guys would lie on their back and just try to slice somebody open and get a doctor to stop the fight because of the blood. So you take the elbows away, you take the cuts away, and then all of a sudden you've got a fight that goes one round is 10 minutes, 2 5-minute rounds afterwards. You got to be a real animal to fight those rules.
I wouldn't like to get soccer kicked in the head. Eh? Do you guys have the connection to Pride Fighting Academy? Does it have any connection to Pride at all?
No, it's just.
The name?
I mean, we were old school karate guys back in the day, so Japanese culture was very important to us. So, you know, the whole respect, honor vibe, you know, the Japanese samurai culture was pretty much how we always wanted to live our lives, you know. So being a proper martial artist, not just saying that you're a black belt in karate, whatever, but actually living it. So I think that Japanese culture is one of the reasons why we named our gym Pride Fighting Academy. We loved Pride. We were watching it as much as we could. And we grew up in the MMA space, watching guys like Fedor, Heath Herring, Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr, Sakuraba, Vanderlei, Dan Henderson. You know what I mean? Like
the old
old
proper,
school.
those are like the
Yoshida.
proper Pride, yeah.
You know, the guys who made like MMA like so exciting. I mean, if I put on the Pride music, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. The hair will stand up on my arms. Like, it's incredible. Sakuraba being, in my opinion, the first true MMA fighter, you know, comes from a wrestling background, started striking, submitting guys, breaking guys' arms, knocking guys out, you know what I mean, wrestling them. No, he was the first complete mixed martial artist. So it was great to be able to mimic, not mimic, but to draw the inspiration from there.
That's awesome.
And now we spoke a little bit about the guys and girls fighting a little bit later in the year. How many sort of active fighters have you actually got in Pride or at the gym at the moment that you?
We got a lot. Like at the moment, we've got quite a bit, and we've had quite a good year in terms of the fights and the results. Our boxing team, we've got about 6 pro boxers. We got about 4 or 5 amateur boxers. We've got 3 or 4 pro Muay Thai fighters, and we've got about 4 or 5 amateur Muay Thai fighters. The Muay Thai stuff is a little bit more quiet. And then MMA-wise, we've got a handful of pros. We've got about 4 or 5 pros, but we've got a lot of amateurs coming through. And then, so we've got a fight team of about 20 people. You know what I mean? And they're regularly active. Excited for what the boxing team's got coming up. We've got a lot of good prospects. We just started promoting again, or we're going to start promoting again. Boxing is just so unfair. It's a piece of shit sport in that sense. In terms of administration. Okay. So you, as a Cape Town fighter, you can't win in Joburg. You can't win in East London. You know, if you win by knockout, you know what I mean. That's the only way you can win. I mean, like, there's even a joke: you can knock a guy out and still get a draw. You know what I mean? Or you can get disqualified.
Crazy.
You know, we've had a couple of guys get robbed blindly recently, and it's disheartening because in boxing, if you lose your O, people want to throw you away. You're done now. You know, you're not a good boxer anymore. So it's hard. Not like MMA. MMA, they don't care. They want the performances. They don't really care about having a 10-0 record. They don't mind if you 10-3 or 7-3 or whatever the case is, as long as you're putting on exciting fights. With boxing, they want you to be undefeated. It's fickle. But then again, you go to Joburg as a Cape Town fighter, and you know the pressure's on you. And if you're not knocking a guy out, you might as well just say goodbye to your O.
Is this amateur and pro level or?
Pro level. So amateurs, I mean, it's still pretty tricky with the amateurs as well. You get this favoritism from different gyms. You know what I mean? If you're not, like, we've had it bad because we're an MMA gym and now I'm coaching boxers. And they're like, oh, what do you know? You're just an MMA coach. It's like, I've coached 2 South African champions. I know what I'm doing. But no matter how many like pro boxers you have, as an MMA guy, I think you don't. You're still an MMA guy. What do you know about boxing? You don't know boxing. You know, it's difficult. So we always got a target on our back, and unless, like I said, we're knocking guys out, you might as well say goodbye to the win.
Boxing in South Africa has a long history. I mean, like we said earlier, but I knew a few amateur boxers that are over 100 amateur fights and things. And another thing about boxing, other than the politics, is a lot of the promoters screw the fighters a lot. You know, is that still a thing that's?
No, I don't think the promoters screw the fighters. I think that's.
Sorry. I said promoters. I mean the managers. Sorry, of the fighters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. They're actual managers. So when it comes to getting paid, then the fighters don't see that at the end.
Again, I think that's just fighters complaining and being babies when they lose.
Okay.
So boxing's well regulated in terms of if you want to put on a boxing event, they give you a list of criteria that you have to meet before you can have the event. And one of the list of criteria is pay all the purses across early.
Okay.
So Boxing South Africa make the payment to the fighters, not you. As a promoter, as a manager, you don't get it. as a manager or a coach, you can't get money from BSA. You have to get money from the fighter. So BSA will always take, so if you're my boxer, you take your bank details, proof of bank account that's in your name, you give it to BSA, they don't pay anybody else except you. Okay. So it could be a situation where some boxers come from underprivileged areas where they give their coaches bank details because they don't have a bank account themselves. Okay. Maybe from that side, then it could happen. But once you, if you have your own bank account, you have to give it to BSA and they have to pay you. I can't get my commission as a coach from Boxing South Africa. I've got to get it from the fighter.
So,
it's the same thing with MMA. With MMA as well, the commissions get the money, and then the commissions pay across. So it used to happen like that with EFC. I'm not sure if that's still happening now, but before, again, you only get money from the fighter. You can't give your gym details. A lot of the fighters will screw over their coaches because they'll get the money and they won't give the. That's just actually pretty much going to happen to me now as well. Again, a fighter.
And that's a similar situation. The situation you spoke about earlier.
Yeah, so the fighter doesn't win, doesn't get his full purse. So MMA, you show up, you get X amount. You win, you get X amount. So now you're not winning. Now all of a sudden you don't want to part of the money because you're not. Yeah, and you're not making the right amount of money. Again, that's not my fault. You know what I mean? Like if you want to be a fighter, you need to understand you've got management fees that you have to pay, and you've got coaches fees you have to pay. For a long time, I never took money from anyone, especially guys who aren't making money. If guys getting paid $5,000, I mean, to take 25% or $5,000, you feel bad. But if you don't take, you also give the guys that exactly. I don't have to pay. Oh, coach, I don't have money now. Can I not give you the money this time around? So I've changed that as well. So now everybody has to pay for training, and everybody has to pay. If you don't want to pay me, that's on you, no problem. But leave my gym. We're not going to be mates. That's on your conscience, not mine. So from that point of view, yeah, I think fighters can't really be screwed over.
It equals everybody out, you know. Yeah. So no one can say there's any type of favoritism or.
Coaches have it hard, bro.
I can imagine. Yeah, there's a lot you got to juggle.
And also, a lot of the times, you listen to a sob story and you want to help somebody out, and then you're like, I'll take him under my wing. I won't charge him for training. And the guy that you making exceptions for always screws you over, or he never rocks up for training. He's the one that doesn't take his training seriously because he's not paying for it, or he doesn't fight hard because he's not giving the commission away, or he doesn't care about missing weight because he doesn't actually give a fuck. He wants to be seen on TV. You know what I mean? So a lot of the fighters are just, they're not professional. They're not truly professional because they don't have what it takes to see it through on every level, which is seeing through your camp, getting everything done in terms of your meals and whatever else you need to do, and then getting to the end of the camp and having to pay your commission over to your coach. And I don't know about other coaches, but I'm pretty sure, like, not every coach will go above and beyond the call of duty as I do. I've been in the game a long time, and I know what makes a fighter's life easy. I like to make guys' life as easy as possible so they don't have to think. All they have to do is fight. So traveling with the fighters, I'm chauffeuring them around, I'm cooking for them, I'm doing everything that they need. I'm thinking for them up until when they get into the cage, because you want them like focused, and you don't want them stressing about anything. Yeah, so I spend it out of my own pocket to travel with them and to do whatever the case is and rent cars and get everything done. And when a fighter turns around and goes, actually, I don't want to pay you, you know what I mean? It's not cool. And it takes away from what you want to do for the next guy. So you're a lot harder than the next guy that comes through. And then you're like, well, fuck you. You know what I mean? Yeah. This guy screwed me over. I'm not going to get screwed over again. These are my rule sets. And the guy that you're very hard on is always the guy that puts his heart on the line. So the guys that don't get a free ride, man, they're the ones that
got everything to prove.
100%. And also because they invested, they're putting the money in. They're using their own money to train. They're using their own money for petrol. They're using their own money for food. They're giving their fee to their coach. I mean, I don't charge the guys a lot, but it's just something that the guys feel like, shit, I'm paying for training. I got to be there.
It also shows the commitment. I mean, it's what commits people to come. Like you say, if you're getting a free ride, then it's. In where I work, we also give free services as part of our service, and It's training actually really in software, and people, when it's for free, they don't do it.
Yeah,
They'll never do it. No, when they pay for it, they'll do it as quickly as possible.
They won't miss a session, they won't miss a class, they won't miss anything. They'll come 3-4 times a day because they're paying for it, they want their money's worth. It's the guys who get the free ride, and that's why I don't do free rides anymore. If you can't afford your monthly fee, then I can't train.
It's sad for the people that maybe, I don't know, it just makes you not trust people, I'm sure, so
Look, I'm sure every coach out there has a story where they put their neck on the line for somebody and they've been screwed over. You know what I mean? Or you build up a guy, you give him so many skills over so many years, and then they disappear to either another gym or, and it happens everywhere. I mean, no one's going to be with you forever. It's like, you want to see your guys like move on and evolve and develop, like watching guys like Don fighting overseas, fighting UFC, you know what I mean? You're proud of it. You're part to play in the journey. You want to support his career, and you invested because you put so much time in back in the day. So when it's, as a coach, whether a person moves on to forward his career somewhere else, you can't take it personally because there's always a reason. No one's going to be with you forever. It's impossible, and it's a lot of fighters don't do it right. So like the said fighter that's not with me anymore. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, Facebook posts, that are indirectly aimed at me. You know what I mean? Like it's it's creating bad blood for nothing. You know what I mean?
People start to ask questions.
Yeah, and it's shit.
If you don't give a shit about the post and everything, it's just it's not good publicity.
No, but you at the end of the day, you want a guy to say, hey, listen, thanks for the training. You know what I mean? We've been together for 6 or 7 years. I've got to move. It's what happened when Don moved to Joburg. He went to go train with Richie. It's like there's not enough sparring for him here. He outgrew the gym in terms of training partners. You know what I mean? He needed a different environment. He needed other guys to push him. So he went to Joburg. In Joburg, you can make a professional career in fighting because, there's so many fighters out there. There's so much happening. So I wasn't like, oh, fuck, I'm losing my star fighter. It's like, I understand completely. If you don't make the move to Joburg, you know what I mean? Your career is going to hit a standstill. And you know what I mean? Like the fighter leaves with your blessing. You have a good relationship with the other coach. There's no animosity. It's cool. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of fighters don't do that. A lot of guys don't, and I see it in the jiu-jitsu community as well. Guys aren't loyal to their coaches anymore. They want to just, today I'm here, tomorrow I'm somewhere else. And as a jiu-jitsu guy, you're not invested. You're paying fees to be here. Just say, thanks, coach, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? But there's no respect from some guys. And as a coach, as either jiu-jitsu coach or boxing coach, MMA coach, you're like, it takes a bit of your soul away. You go, like, why am I wasting my time for this? So it's a tough one. So I know we got sidetracked now, but with boxing, it's a lot of the times the fighters were screwing over managers and coaches, not the other way around, because the boxers are being looked after.
What makes you, in all the years you've been coaching, what makes you the proudest to be a coach?
Look, I think there's, as a gym owner, and not necessarily just a coach, seeing the evolution of people in your space and the growth, both physical and emotional, is really rewarding. Receiving messages from people saying, listen, without your gym, I don't know, it saved my life. You know what I mean? I was depressed and I'm taking antidepressants. I've been training with you for X amount of time now. I'm off my antidepressants. I'm feeling strong. I never had a sense of community before. Now I got a sense of family. That is probably one of the most rewarding for me. Then obviously seeing people, like we've got a huge ladies contingent in the gym, watching the ladies come in to a male-dominated space, seeing them timid and unsure and like too nervous to do anything. 4 or 5 months later, getting stuck in wrestling classes, grappling classes, sparring classes, and really like shedding a layer of skin and becoming somebody completely different, confident, strong. That's also one of the best things. And then with the fighters, just seeing the evolution, seeing somebody that's really basic, evolve and go, oh shit, like you're looking slick, your striking's improved so much. like your jits game improve, your wrestling is doing like so much better. You know what I mean? You're seeing them put all the pieces of the puzzle together nicely. Then it's, you put good performances in the cage or in the ring. You know what I mean? Then obviously you feel as a coach, as a combat coach, you feel proud. My fighter's doing well. He won a belt, or he's 3-0 as a pro in the EFC, potentially looking at a UFC shot. You know what I mean? Those are things that make you also proud. So there's a lot of different facets that as a coach I can go, geez, I'm super stoked. This is one of the best things. And I think watching my kids grow up in this space is also for me knowing that I can have my 2 young ones running around in a combat gym, in a cage fighting academy, grow up 100% safe and in a good environment with good people.
So are your kids training, or they're just coming and running around?
Yeah, no, they're training. So my boy's had 2 boxing fights already. He's had about 5 or 6 jits comps. But I don't push him. So we want him to, he's got a cool temperament. He's lazy, but he homeschools. So he's at the gym all day. So he doesn't take advantage of what he can have out, but he's young. He's turning 12 now in October. But we started putting a little bit more pressure on him now. Saying, okay, cool, you become a teenager. He's starting to join the adult classes. He did the gi class with me tonight. He's doing boxing classes. He's got a little bit of sparring sessions. He does one-on-one training with some of the coaches. So he's really starting to develop as a young teen, and loves fighting. He wants to compete and fight, which is awesome. My daughter, she does it. She does boxing, she does kickboxing, she does jits, and she's really good, but she's obsessed with gymnastics. So she'll compete in gymnastics, but she won't compete in anything. No, she's not interested.
It's cool to have that option. I mean, as long as, if you grow up in it, then obviously, the thought is there. But I mean, it's very nice, I'm sure, to be able to give them the option to just do what they want to do, essentially. Yeah. So,
and also, for us, we want to empower them. You know what I mean? I want my daughter to be able to handle herself, or my son to be able to handle himself. You know what I mean? Feeling confident in their body, being strong. That's important for me. Like, my goals as a gym owner has changed completely from when I started this gym with my brother to where it is now. You know what I mean? Now it's a business. I live this full time. Back then I couldn't do it full time. I was in the restaurant game my whole life. And you can't give your heart and soul to people in two different industries. So once I made the decision to do this full time, it's the best decision I ever made. Living a healthy lifestyle, again, not chasing fighters to be in the UFC or into Pride or to Bellator, whatever the case is. It's about, I want to create a great safe training environment for people, and I want to teach what I love. And if I do have fighters they come by and we do something with them, awesome. You know what I mean? I usually take losses of fighters really personally. Like if my fighter lost back in the day, or my wife couldn't talk to me for a week, I'd be pissed off, I'd be depressed. It would be like me losing. I felt like, my gym's going to close. What are people going to think of me as a coach? So those are no longer my driving force. You know what I mean? It's like I want my guys to win, but it's not if they lose, they lost. I feel it, but I don't feel like I did before. I've given everything I can to make sure that they're prepared and ready. And if they win, I don't celebrate the win like I won. They celebrate the win because they won. You know what I mean? We come along for the ride, but it's their journey. And since I've taken that approach, I'm finding a lot more value and meaning in my day-to-day, training my classes, teaching my private lessons, you know what I mean, engaging with people. That for me is where we're at and where I find the most joy. Obviously, I love cornering a fighter in a win and in a big fight situation, but it's not my everything at the moment. No, you have to focus on your business first, because without a business, the fighters don't have a place to train. So you've got to establish your clientele base. You've got to establish your family ethos. You've got to create a good business that can sustain your fighters eventually. Because if you've got a gym that's barely making ends meet, your fighters won't have a place to train. And I think Rico experienced that. Going from wanting a fighter-dominated gym to being a casual member-dominated gym, to being a CrossFit gym. You know what I mean? Teaching jiu-jitsu mainly, not teaching so much MMA, because you need to support your family. You get married, you have kids, it's no longer about the prestige of being a fighter or a top fight coach.
So lastly, any final words, any take-home words before we wrap it up? Any last things you'd like to say?
I think the only thing I can leave with like the MMA community or the combat space community, it's like be open-minded. For a long time, even myself, closed-minded, want to keep everything to yourself and have a closed-door policy. We've had an open-door policy in our gym now for the last 10 years, seeing people come from other gyms, having other gyms coming for sparring and training, students from Joburg coming down from other gyms and letting them come train for free, just to open the doors to experience other things. I think have an open door policy, engage with people as much as you can, work together as gym owners, as coaches, to grow the sport instead of just sticking into your little bubble and avoiding everybody. You know what I mean? We're not going to grow the sport on our own. It's a community. So like getting behind, and I said this to, I can't remember who I was speaking to. We were talking about Drickus because he's the most current active fighter at the moment. And he's got a lot of momentum behind him. He's like, he's flying the flag for South Africa. So technically, he's every gym's fighter. So he should be able to travel to any gym that he wants, pop into a coach and say, hey, can you help me with this? Can I do this? Can I train here? You know what I mean? Obviously not taking away from his actual coach, but having access to whoever he wants. Guys who are fighting internationally, if they need sparring partners, give them sparring partners. If they need strength and conditioning help, give them the strength and conditioning help. Open your door to grow the sport of MMA instead of just keeping it in your little corner and holding on to your knowledge. Like, work with other people. And I'm seeing it in Cape Town starting to open up a little bit. I'm not sure how it is in Joburg, but in Cape Town, guys are starting to talk to each other a little bit more, trying to engage with each other a little bit more, and it's cool to see. So I think if we carry on doing that, it's going to spread. Having guys joining open mats. I mean, most gyms have open mats, but it's not really an open mat. Like that gym can't come, or that gym got that person because he's friendly with this guy, he can't come. No, if it's open your doors to everybody. Make sure everybody's welcome. And if you're going to somebody else's space, respect their space. Don't go try to prove a point. And I think we'll be able to grow the MMA space quite nicely. We got the athletes to do it. I think if everyone works together, it's going to be pretty cool to see the end result.
I'm hoping it's only a couple of years before, and I think it is soon before that happens, maybe a couple of years, and we'll have many more Cameron Simons, Drickus du Plessis, and things like that.
100%. Look, I think, and again, this goes to the gym owners. We've got a Western Cape district for MMA. We've put this little team together of guys, and all the gym owners who are registered to the Western Cape district are on it together. So I'm hoping next year all those guys put amateur fighters, whether it's juniors, seniors, whatever the case is, all into the Western Province trial or Western Cape trials. Get a big team to go to nationals with. Start to build it from the ground up. All the gyms are trying to work together. And I think if we do put it off, I think like the Western Cape will have a really powerful team, and we'll have a lot of guys from this area being super competitive and hopefully dominating nationals and getting guys to the professional level pretty quickly, and hopefully being noticed and getting snapped up by the UFC when they come down. Because I do believe they're going to come down soon.
Yeah, they're supposed to have a UFC Africa event or something like that. So, and
where else are they going to go?
Yeah, that's what I was also thinking. I thought maybe Nigeria, but the safety issue, because you got Adesanya. Cameroon, no, because of Ngannou. I don't even think he's got his next fight sorted.
The only African country you're going to come to where it's got everything, where it's got great tourism, where it's got sites that people want to see, it's a destination. It's South Africa. It's going to be Cape Town. You know what I mean? It's a no-brainer. Yeah. I think we can't be guaranteed that it is, but I think if you gear yourself towards UFC coming in the next year or two, they have to take local fighters. So the guys need to start fighting. Guys are going to step up their game. Got to get noticed. And I'm hoping my boys and my girls, my ladies in the gym, not the girls, they step up and make a name for themselves. Get to a good record, put on some good fights, and hopefully Uncle Dana comes in, sees them, and picks them up.
Yeah, no, I think definitely. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hoping it is in Cape Town. But I think even if it is in Johannesburg, I'll probably end up making the flight up anyway. But
100%. I mean, everyone will go and do it.
yeah, we don't know how many more times they're going to be here. So after that, so hopefully it's the first of many.
Look, with the current signings, there's a lot of guys that have been signed up. I think if they can put 7 South Africans on a card, 8 South Africans on a card, then it makes sense. And hopefully the guys like Tembo have just been signed, guys like Cameron have just been signed. Hopefully if they can win a couple of good fights, make a nice name for themselves, build South Africa's reputation. You know what I mean? Tricker's got a big fight with Darren Till coming up. You know what I mean? Take a big name like that. You know, it really does do a lot for the MMA community as a whole. So hopefully it all works out.
It just takes one. Hey, look at Conor McGregor, what he did for Ireland. So
100%, and it's in Europe, not just Ireland. The whole of Europe's booming. The MMA talent that's coming out of Europe at the moment is next level. The grappling talent that's coming out of there is next level. And the support for the shows is incredible. Just watching, they had the first fight. Where did they travel to recently?
Is it not Sweden?
No, it wasn't Sweden. No, it was a new destination that they just went to. France. The support in France.
Yeah.
The UFC going to France. I mean, the crowd was electric. The excitement to have a UFC event was electric. The amount of the level that it brought in the French fighters. I think they lost one fight out of like 6 or 7 guys on the card. You know what I mean? And the fights were spectacular. The crowd was crazy. The support from the whole country was amazing. So if we're able to do something similar, then there's no reason why UFC won't come here 3-4 times a year. There's no reason. They're doing a show every month.
Yeah, they've got shows almost every day now these days with all the in between the pay-per-views.
And even if we land one event and it's a big event, and the rand dollar makes it a great destination to come and visit. You know, so we'll get a lot of international visitors. It'll be massive for the country. So I'm hoping as a small MMA coach from Cape Town that the big leagues do come down here, give guys an opportunity to compete, you know, in their home country on the biggest stage. It'll be awesome.
And if it makes money, it makes sense. So I'm sure if it's a success once, they'll do it again.
100%. And the UFC are all about making money.
Yeah.
They don't lose.
Yeah, exactly. Mike, thank you very much for the time. I really do
thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Yeah, and thanks for having me again
It's a
in the
pleasure.
gym. Yeah, hopefully we can do this one day again in the
Catch you
future.
on that soon.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you're chatting to my wife tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Yeah.